We're talking independence today. It is the 4th of July, and America is celebrating their independence. But I really want to talk about, let this truck pass. Oh, it's not trucks, it's like security. A whole grid of them. Okay, so what I really want to talk about, independence wise, is um, goodness gracious, what is it really? Um, is is there even such a thing as independence? Um, so the definition, I put it in the description of this, and it defines it with its own word, the state of being independent. Woohoo, that's so illuminating. Okay. Um, and it also says freedom from influence, freedom from control, freedom uh, by others or one particular entity. So in the case of America, it was from the control of another sovereign state. So they were looking to clip the ties, clip the strings so that they could create their own rules and so on and so forth. But they were depending on them for lots of things, for resources, for food, for so on, for trade. After independence, were they no longer dependent? No, they made different agreements so that they can rely on those resources, depend on those resources, um, regardless with under a new agreement where different controls were in place. Um, they were no longer sovereign to them. They were independent, yet still dependent. Bottom line, we always need each other. We're always connected to each other. The only thing that changes are the agreements, and the way we feel about it, right? So, okay, um, you are a child and you are growing up under your parents' home. And the first few years, you love it. You think that that your parents are the best thing in the world. Um, of course, you're in your growing stage and so on and so forth, but then you have your rebel phase. You're like, hey, I've seen some things in the world. You aren't all that. I need to get out of here. I need my independence. Um, what is it that you're really seeking? You're seeking different agreements. When you were a child, you were given the rules for you, and you had to abide by them, or else you would experience the repercussions. And so, with that, if you are um, finally ready to experience life without those restrictions, with different sets of rules, then you need your independence from your parents. It's a process everybody goes through that I'm sure you're familiar. But are you ever actually not dependent? You may be free from their control, but let them have a mood swing where they all of a sudden don't like you anymore. And you're like, whoa, that so affected my world. Sometimes we just are still dependent on the people we love showing up in particular ways. We have certain expectations of them. Um, and so there are ways in which we are still dependent even though we are independent. And I'm not saying that that's a healthy thing. I'm just pointing it out. Can you ever be truly independent? I think to be truly independent is actually a state of detachment, like fully detaching from from life, from the world, from those types of people who go out into the woods and they try to live solo, and yet they are still dependent on nature, on people not coming and buying up their land and monopolizing yet another space. Like they are still part of the world. There's no escaping that. The whole I just like to be alone and I just like to be independent. Yeah, uh, independent, strong woman. That trope. You're depending on your job instead of depending on your husband. All right, I'm gonna get a lot of hate from that. So back in the days, women would have to, because of society, depend on their husband for bringing in the money and so on and so forth, right? And I'm talking recent history, because if you really go back into history, the roles of men and women have fluctuated through time as far as power situations and who brings home what's respected, so on and so forth. I'm talking about it within the last century. And so where women have been disgustingly held down. But the whole concept of let's free the woman and let's have the woman be independent, fabulous, fabulous. But to act as if we are not dependent because we now have jobs, dude, just like the guy was dependent on that job for working out. You're dependent on the job for getting clients and for maintaining a healthy business relationship, so that money keeps coming in and people keep on wanting to buy, so that they have money for hiring you as an employee to support. You're dependent on on all of those people making it a success. You're dependent on the customers actually going and buying. You're dependent on actually a lot of people with your independent behind. Independence. One thing that we forget is that, say with that job, the plus over the husband, relying on the husband or the job, you can so easily walk away from the job. It's in the contract you sign initially. It's usually the job can end your employment at any point, and you can choose to end the employment at any point. For a husband, it is till death do you part. So there's a couple of moral things going on there that has you feeling like, oh, I actually chose not to be independent here forever and ever until I die. But I guess I'm just having fun with independence here. Oh goodness gracious. So yeah, I think it's funny to act as if we're so independent when really so much of our lives are dependent on others in so many ways. If I just want to take a trip, part of that is depending on people showing up for work so that I can take transportation to get from here to there. Like, really look at the connections in your life. Look at who you actually depend on a regular basis. You may not even know their names. One instance of that is, again, a work example. Going into work, making that commute on a regular basis on the train. There was only 1, 2, or 3 trains that I would take on a regular basis every day. And in hindsight, the schedule was such that there would be 1, 2, or 3 train conductors on a regular basis that would be running those trains, right? And so you may think, oh, well, over some amount of time, you would get to know the train conductor. I mean, you're so dependent on him showing up on time for work and so on and so forth, and he's dependent on you actually using the train as well as all the other people in the ecosystem, right? But no, years and years went by, and I never even bothered to remember their faces well, even though they were the ones responsible for taking me to work. And that's just a short bit of my dependence on people and systems to live my life, my independent life. What would open up for me and for other people if I actually acknowledged my dependence on people, places, things actually being in place? If I acknowledged my dependence on innovation, so that things would change, so that I would have some new things to experience on a regular basis, thanks to these geniuses. What if I actually acknowledge them on a regular basis? What if I actually like introduce myself? What if I'm like, hey, I'm dependent on your genius. Thank you. Love you. I'm dependent on you showing up for work so that I'm on time for work. Thanks for all you do on a regular basis. I know people don't really say anything, but I really enjoy my ride, and you make that possible. Thank you. Thank you. Like, yeah, people can be replaced every day and a new person put in their place, and then so on and so forth. But in this moment, there are so many people that I am dependent on so that I can experience my freedom. And I'm thankful. And I hope that you evaluate your life and see all the people that you are dependent on and acknowledge them and be grateful for them. And hopefully one of these days thank them and have some feel good conversations. All right, independent folks, you take care and really check out how you have been dependent and loving it and not acknowledging it. All right, take care. Live your life joyfully free. Mwah. Take care. Bye. Woo.